Let's go to a guy that if I'm reading your diaries correctly from each day at the Senior Bowl and my own eyes from watching the Senior Bowl itself, I feel like this guy lost draft status, and that would be Jalen Milroe from Alabama. What can you tell us about Milroe?
Well, for one, at the Senior Bowl, they had everybody from under center. And from what I can see, just about all these quarterbacks were shotgun quarterbacks. I don't know why they did that. All their plays were under center. Milroe struggled. He struggled mightily. He's not as tall as these other quarterbacks. He's only 6'2", but he's a running quarterback. The problem that he had is with his accuracy. He would short arm a lot of passes. He would overthrow a lot of passes. Throwing it deep, you can forget it. It's just not going to be completed. He just doesn't have any accuracy at all. Most of the time, the ball just drifts out of bounds and is uncatchable. That's the majority of his downfield throws. If it's a sideline pass, if it's somewhere in the deep field, he either overthrows it or underthrows it. But he just struggled. He struggled with his drop backs because if you take it under center, you drop back usually 6 to 7 steps. Well, in the shotgun, you're already 6 to 7 steps back. He just didn't know how to handle that. If he had pressure, especially pressure from the inside, he was confused about where to go from there. Now, in the shotgun, he knows he can either go left or right and sometimes step up in the pocket. But when you're being pressured and you drop back and you're not used to dropping back, he just had lots of problems. He had lots of fumbles. He had lots of interceptions in the 7-7s. What he was doing, though, one-on-ones with receivers against debate. Of course, he looked good. There's no pass rush there. He's just dropping back and acting like he's, in a pocket. But when he got into the 7-7s, when he got into the 11-11s, he was lost.
Yeah, that's kind of been everything I've read about and seen, honestly, on tape myself with Jalen Milroe. And you talked about putting these guys under center immediately once they get to the Senior Bowl. And I wonder part of that is to see how they adapt quickly to the processing ability, because like you were saying, when they're in shotgun, they get that extra second and a half to read the defense and see everything unfold. When they're under center and they're coming back into play action, or they're just dropping back, they're losing out on that time. So it's all about processing, getting through your reads, and maybe they're testing them on that kind of stuff. And Milroe has been a guy that's talked about with the Tommy Rees connection and all that kind of stuff, because he was the OC at Alabama back in 23 and all that kind of stuff. But seeing some of these mock drafts that have Milroe in the first round, or the Browns trading back into the teens or something and grabbing him up, I keep telling people stop doing that, because I don't think this guy should even sniff the first round. But how do you see him projected in the draft?
Well, coming into the draft, coming into the Senior Bowl, he looked like a mid-second rounder. I use a site that I use, their big board. And that's where they had him, and that's where I would go with him. But if he was drafted in the third round, that'd surprise me. He is almost. It reminds me of back in the day with Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow would have one read, one progression, then he'd take off. And in college, you could do that, but in the NFL, you can't. You've got guys that are playing safety that are going to come down and just take you out. And the sacks are going to go up. The incompletions are going to go up. You can't drop back to pass or be in the shotgun and then take off 7 out of 8 plays, because after a while, they're going to start stacking the box with 8 players, and you're not going to be able to get anywhere at all. I did an interview with Jalen Milroe. It's on the site, dogsbynature.com. And I asked him about Tommy Rees. And I've got the interview up. Let me see if what he said. I asked him about Nick Saban. I've also asked him about Tommy Rees. This was my question to him about Tommy Rees. Tommy Rees was your OC for one season at Alabama. He is now the OC with the Browns. Would that be an advantage for you with the familiarity? And this is what Milroe said. I have so much respect for Coach Rees as a person and a coach. I learned so much from him, and he trusted me to have the ball in my hands. He is a coach who will put me in the grind. We both worked together well and achieved a lot for that one season. I would look forward for us to work together again. And what he means by putting the ball in his hand, when they lost against Michigan, not this year, of course they weren't in the playoffs, but the year before when Tommy Rees was the OC, the very last play when they were on like the 2-yard line, the play called was a Milroe run that he got stuffed. Now, everybody was asking, well, why wasn't it a rollout where it was an option play where he could have thrown it or he could have scrambled in? It was just a run up the middle, and he got stuffed, and that was the end of the game. But Tommy Rees put the ball to Jalen Milroe, which is a playmaker. He put the ball into his hand, and that's what he was talking about as far as Tommy Rees trusting him.
Yeah, I mean, in those situations, you put the ball in your best player's hand. Typically, that's your quarterback, and you trust them to make the play. Sometimes it works, sometimes it does not work. So with Milroe, we've seen a lot of this stuff in the NFL where teams draft these project quarterbacks with this insane athleticism, and I'm sure Milroe is going to go to the combine and test phenomenally, in all the different athletic things. But we just saw that happen with Anthony Richardson. And how has that worked out for the Colts?
Right.
He is a one read, and then I got to get going because I can't go through my progressions type of quarterback. And it doesn't mean he can't develop, into an NFL passer. But so far, it's been 2 years. I know he's been injured and stuff, but it has not worked. And I would I do not want the Browns to draft this guy.
Yeah, RG3. RG3 was a great quality quarterback, gained a ton of yards. But for every Lamar Jackson that comes out that does great in the NFL, then there's somebody like RG3 and Tim Tebow, Vince Young, great running quarterback. None of them ended up doing well and a successful career because they don't go through their progressions. They don't know how to read a defense. When you're in the shotgun, you mentioned under center versus being under shotgun. Another advantage that you have in the shotgun is you can survey the defense right away. You've got it in full panoramic view of what the defense looks like. When you drop back to pass, you don't. You have to do pre-snap reads and then trust your gut on that. But as you're dropping back, you don't know that this guy is stunning or this guy is not rushing and somebody else is rushing like a linebacker or a cornerback or a safety instead. You don't have that view of it, but in shotgun you do. So that's why a lot of these college programs use that. Milroe's done well with that. He would do an RPO where he would try to hand it to the back, and then if it wasn't there, he'd run. And that's what he tried to do at the Senior Bowl. Is his habit is to run and run first. But if he's got to throw the ball, he just struggled all 3 days. There was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then Friday is helmets and shorts, and they just do walkthroughs and they do special teams. But all 3 days he just struggled. He looked bad.